Design Notes is a show about creative work and what it teaches us. I'm your host, Liam Spradlin. Each episode, I talk with people from unique creative fields to discover what inspires and unites us in our practice. This episode is part of a special series of 4 interviews with the winners of this year's Material Design Awards, exploring what goes into creating an award-winning app.
You're just able to very freely and very honestly put in all your thoughts and all your feelings. And that's the bare bone essential of the core of what journaling actually is. It's offloading all these feelings and knowing that they're stored somewhere.
That was Jacob Kristensen, co-founder of Reflectly, a unique journaling app that won this year's award for innovation, pushing the boundaries of material design and bringing it to life with fluid animations, a novel elevation model, and custom componentry. In the interview, Jacob and I dig into the foundations of Reflectly and how its experience, from philosophy to specific interactions, came to life. Let's get started. Jacob, welcome to Design Notes.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So to get started, I just want to get a little bit of history on Reflectly, both as a product and its design direction.
Reflectly actually started back in the beginning of 2017. We were a small company doing a lot of consulting work, and we had a hard time tracking our, I guess you could say, mood, because internally in the company we had, some battles with consulting work, and essentially we were, feeling a bit down and a bit under the weather sometimes because, the work was kind of a big load. So we actually built this tool to kind of help us track essentially kind of our small wins and losses throughout this period, and quite quickly found out this was actually a problem for a lot of people, not in regards to consulting work, but just in regards to like general problems they had in their lives and kind of tracking their mood and seeing how they developed over time. So we actually turned to the consumer-faced market with this product and looked at essentially what problem are we solving in the world that is at the center of this problem for people who have in their everyday lives. Essentially, we're looking at going towards the Instagram generation, because we were just seeing a lot of people resonating with this product and the value proposition that we were putting out, especially in regards to having this safe space where they could essentially just vent. Essentially, you're seeing the world through the Instagram keyhole with the nice filters and everything looks great. Your friends are always on vacation and you have this ideal that you strive towards obtaining, but it's always unobtainable. And you always get more problems in your personal life.
Yeah, nobody's taking pictures of the bad stuff.
No, everyone knows their own bad stuff, but you don't know your friend's bad stuff. We see a lot of people who take upon themselves that have these internal problems, and because it's Instagram, the generation, and because they're actually looking at, I have this facade I have to keep up. A lot of people have a hard time even telling their best friends or their family the truth of what they're going through. And that's why we see a lot of people who come towards a product like this, because it's a little personification of essentially a little robot that you're talking with. And you're just able to very freely and very honestly put in all your thoughts and all your feelings. And that's the bare bone essential of kind of the core of what journaling actually is. It's offloading all these feelings and knowing that they're stored somewhere.
So this idea of forming a relationship with this little robot and being able to tell it all of the things you're going through is very central to the product. I want to know how you approached designing an experience around that kind of reinforces that feeling.
So essentially the first screen you're greeted by at any point in time when you open Reflectly is like a hello screen where it Reflectly, as you would with a new person you meet, introduces itself. And then you go through a flow of getting to knowing each other. Essentially, Reflectly is asking you, the first screen after you start onboarding the app is, what your friends call you to kind of get a personal level of interaction and without pulling out too much information from the user, because we essentially just need to know what they like to be called. And then from there, it kind of funnels down into a deeper relationship. So over time, you build this level of trust with the app, which is kind of propagated through these flows that you go through within the app. So you go through flows of questions where you every day come through a series of different questions that you can choose to answer. But instead of actually going in and just giving people a blank page, which is actually where journaling fails, because a lot of people have a very hard time articulating what they're thinking, this rambling head just full of thoughts and putting it into words. That's actually a good gift to have, but very few people have that gift and the ability to just have a blank piece of paper and just write. So that's actually why we break it down into micro interactions, where Reflectly will ask you a question, and then instead of you writing something down, you interact with a given piece of UI. For example, selecting an icon that represents how you feel, or you can use a little slider to kind of define your mood. So all these small micro interactions, which are designed to be very delightful, actually help build that relationship with the robot. So the trust quite quickly is apparent for people, and they quite quickly build that relationship themselves.
I'm interested in what role material design has played in inspiring the visual aspects of the app.
Mm-hmm. So very early in my career, I was a very quick adopter of material design. I love the idea of having a unified system for all your interfaces. And this was back in 2014-15 when that popped out. And on the flip side of that, I also quite quickly recognized that it's hard to get, at least at that point in time, a unique feel for your app or a unique look for your app, like a very, very brand-specific look, because it's very much the same all across the board. But the very core principles of material design, having a piece of paper and having elevation and, giving it physical properties that they can't bump into each other and just like things can't merge through each other. The very core principles, I think, have stuck with me for a very long time and still do today. So a lot of that is rooted in what you see today in Reflectly, that you have a material, quote unquote, that kind of morphs and animates into different shapes and sizes, but also you have a very physical restraint in the app that things can't merge through each other, they can't bump into each other, you have different levels of elevation, you have animations that drive the app. So a lot of the things that I think were some of the core principles in material design I've kind of taken with me throughout the time and helped guide the way of how we designed Reflectly.
I also know that Reflectly, its UI is built using Flutter, and I'm interested in if you think that has given you like additional design affordances compared to other options, or like what role that's played.
Yeah, Flutter was great for us. Previously, we were using another cross-platform framework, which just wasn't really living up to the standards we had and hoped for to actually have a cross-platform framework that just worked. That being said, we were, of course, looking at a lot of different options, even just like writing it natively, just like going pure iOS and pure Android. But Flutter, we were quite early in the Flutter wagon, and we were in very late closed alpha when that popped out. And it was great for us because we were actually able to see the performance level across the board, and we were able to do a lot of the complex UI that we had designed and hoped to be able to implement like very easily. We also got quite a lot out of the box at some points in time. So for example, the key transition in the app is where the user clicks one of the cards in their journal and it kind of morphs into the new page, and you have this very nice transition where you feel that some elements are carried over. For example, the hero image is carried over, and that is natively done in Flutter. So they have a hero widget for that, and it kind of makes things fly across screens, and you get these lovely transitions, and it really helps the user know where they're coming from and going to. So that is kind of all the way through being a lot of the basic ideas of Flutter that we can implement or re-implement ourselves, but always on the backbone of the platform.
Reflectly won the award for innovation this year. So I'd like to hear about specific things or specific ideas that come through in the app that make it innovative.
I think a lot of the things that we do in Reflectly, again, going down the path of keeping it, capturing a complex idea like an emotion of a human in a simple way, and very difficult. And you have to have a balance of keeping it understandable for the user so it doesn't get too complex, but also allowing them to have enough room to actually capture the given thing that they want to capture. For example, being an emotion in combination with different activities, in combination with random thoughts. Getting that boiled down and being able to interact with that in an easy and intuitive way, I think is an innovative approach we've taken. Another thing is we also use quite a lot of animations in the app. So we actually go in and use animations to drive affordance at a lot of places. So you could, for example, see the main journaling page. Some things animate in like a staggered way, so you kind of get this natural flow, but also things animated in a way that the main cards in your journal actually animate in from the side, staggered, so you can quickly understand the affordance of these cards or this block of widgets is that they slide left to right instead of going horizontal in the scroll. So you can quite quickly understand across a lot of the UI of the app that the animation actually helps the user know, what the affordance is of the object and how they can actually interact with it.
So with things like your systematic approach to motion and communicating things to the user that way, is that something that you've iterated on over time, or what does that look like?
The bare bones ideas of an MVP when you launch that is, launch quick. So back then it was very rugged, very bare bone. And over time we've really iterated on the idea of how we can implement more both delightful animations, like the user feels so playful and they interact with the app because they love the small micro interactions. But also because the animations help us really dive deep into how the user should approach a different object. Also, if you look at let's say, again, the journal listing page, like the big journal page that we have, back when we started, it was just, everything loaded instantly. It isn't the best experience. You kind of just get everything thrown in your face. And the human mind actually naturally reads left to right and top to bottom. So having things stagger in that order gives a very peaceful and natural way of looking at a UI and kind of getting introduced to it every time. So that actually happens in a lot of places in the app, where we kind of stagger things in for the user instead of it just plopping it in their face.
Finally, where do you see Reflectly's design going in the future? Like, what's the next iteration on top of this?
Yeah, so actually now we're in the process of redesigning a lot of the app. We call it version 3.0. So we've taken essentially what we've learned throughout the last 24 months of being in the market and really diving deep with our users and hearing what they want in a product, but also seeing how they're using the product in a certain way that might not be as what we intended originally. Some, of course, very positive that they're using it in a different way than we intended, but of course on the backbone of the platform that we've built. But on the flip side, also some things that aren't quite clear for users. So we're actually going to be breaking a lot of the interaction down even further, kind of into what we again call micro interactions. So instead of the user going through these long defined flows as you can draw the analogy over to going to the therapist, having a 10-minute therapy session every day. And in the long run, that might for some users get a bit hard to deal with, instead of going in and quickly logging down some thoughts or quickly putting in some emotions. So that is, I think, what we'll be looking into further going forward. I also think delighting users, giving them playful interactions. We just launched a new filter page, which kind of has these little wobbly sliders, so you can navigate them up and down, and when you release them, they kind of wobble back and forth. Like a very small thing, but just a thing that feels so delightful and so playful, you want to play with it a lot. And that also is the idea of the very approachable and friendly UI, going deeper with that, actually adding as much empathy into the UI as we can. Also in the response when a user is having a bad day, actually changing UI to catch them and pick them back up compared to when they were having a good day. Looking into that dynamic of the split between what a user is willing to interact with on good days versus bad days is something we're going to go quite deep with, because we can see it works very well.
It strikes me that as you talk about the interface being able to pick users up and respond to what they are thinking or feeling, that maybe the interface is always a conversation.
I think very much so. The context that the user's in matters, the most. Bringing stuff into the context for the user and actually allowing them to have different experiences, novel experiences throughout their time within the app. So it's not just like the same experience they go through every time, but it actually caters to their current mood and their current need is something we're looking a lot into. We've kind of dipped our toe in that water today, but going forward, that is going to be a lot like a cornerstone of the app, even more than it is today.
Well, thank you again, Jacob.
Yeah, you're welcome. Great being here.
From Google Design and the Material Design team, I'd like to take a moment to thank all of the Material Design Award winners for sharing with me the details, challenges, and considerations behind each of their apps. If you want to hear more about Material, follow @Material Design on Twitter and read more about the awards at design.google. Make sure to check out the rest of the episodes in our special series with the Material Design Award winners, and stay tuned so you don't miss our next episode. You can subscribe to Design Notes on Google Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Leave us a review on iTunes and listen for a shout out in the next episode, or let us know how we're doing with an email to design@google.com. Thanks for listening.